The Dogman myth, or real, you might not believe in most cryptid sightings because of how easy it is to fake them today.
And somewhere in the Northwood's darkness, a creature walks upright. And the best advice you may ever get is don't go out at night.
With blurry photos and shaky videos on the internet, it's hard to know what's real anymore.
When I first heard about it, I probably laughed. I think I did laugh because it just seemed crazy to me that anybody would think that. But then when you go and talk to the people and you meet them and they still seem genuinely frightened, they don't want to see it again, you just can't help but believe somebody like that. I've interviewed people with 2 PhDs, middle-aged women who work in a factory on third shift at night, very elderly people, farmers, somebody from the Milwaukee airport with a very high clearance. It's just men, women, you name it. There's no one sort of person.
But every once in a while, a story surfaces that refuses to go away, and it's hard to ignore when there are many witnesses.
Now for a strange story out of rural Coffee County. Residents there say they've heard unusual animal sounds at night, and several ATV riders say they've seen unusual-looking creatures in the distance.
I can just say this, something's going on in the woods.
Recently, the two men have received reports from ATV riders of distant sightings of an unusual animal, but it didn't sound like a coyote.
Hey, there's something strange. There's some knocking going on. We hear some screeches. They're not dogs. They're not coyotes.
And this is not the first time there have been reports of an unusual creature in the woods.
For decades, many have reported encounters with a strange creature that they call the Dogman. This is a massive canine creature that doesn't move like an animal. These beings stand upright like humans, tower over 7 feet tall, with powerful bodies, glowing eyes, and the head of a wolf. They resemble werewolves from your favorite sci-fi movie, so it's easy to dismiss them as myths. But the story doesn't come from folklore. According to multiple accounts, the U.S. military captured a Dogman in northern Michigan. What happened next was something terrifying. Trained personnel watched in disbelief as the creature did something that changed everything they thought they knew. With this accurate report coming right out of the military, experts are now wondering that the legend of the Dogman might not be a legend at all. Origin of the modern legend. The legend of the Michigan Dogman started on the radio. In 1987, a disc jockey named Steve Cook at WTCM-FM in Traverse City, Michigan, wrote and recorded a song called The Legend. It was meant to be an April Fool's Day prank, a spooky story that talked about a mysterious half-man, half-dog creature that appeared in the woods of northern Michigan every 10 years. Before he wrote the song, Cook had never heard of a real Dogman, and he made up lyrics out of imagination and bits of folklore he had heard elsewhere. But here's what nobody expected to happen. After the song first aired, the phone lines at the radio station lit up. Listeners began calling in, not to complain about the joke, but to reveal shocking encounters about the creature that was described in the song. 1. Caller told Cook that decades earlier, he had actually seen a dog-like animal standing upright, and that he had never talked about it until hearing the song. That single call attracted more reports from all around northwest Michigan. Cook kept on playing the track because people couldn't get enough of it. Before they knew it, it became the station's most requested song. He even sold cassette copies and donated the proceeds to animal charities. Over time, Cook added more verses to the song as more people shared their stories. Even Cook himself later admitted he was skeptical about whether a real Dogman existed. He once said, "I'm tremendously skeptical, but I do believe people who think they saw something really did see something." This led to many accounts and sightings of the Dogman, and it still captures the imaginations of many today. Historical accounts and sightings. Before the Michigan Dogman became famous in the late 20th century, stories of strange canine-like beings living on the edge of the human world go back much further. People have always told tales of creatures that seem to blur the line between man and animal. In ancient Greece and India, writers spoke of cynocephaly, which are beings whose bodies were humans, but whose heads were like dogs. Experts still find these figures in early medical and travel texts. The dog-headed people were part of Old World imagination long before the modern cryptids emerged. In England and Scotland, folk tales told of the wolver, a wolf-like being that stood upright and had traits of both humans and beast. Some villagers were afraid of it, while others remembered stories of it leaving fish on their doorsteps. Many Native American traditions have also talked about shapeshifters. These beings could take the form of animals or move between human and animal shapes. They weren't feared by many, but sometimes they were seen as protectors or powerful spirits. These older myths seem like fairy tales, but there's something surprising about them. People looked into the woods at night and felt like something was watching them. Anthropologist David Gordon White wrote about ancient stories, races of dogmen placed in distant lands. But in the recent decades, sightings of the dogman became widespread in Michigan, and it seems to be more than just a legend anymore. Michigan sightings and reports. In 1961, a night watchman near Haymarsh, Michigan, was working a quiet shift when something strange broke the silence. It was just after 3 a.m., and he was on his porch, watching the dark woods beyond the factory grounds. That's when he heard an unusual noise by the fence and saw something large moving in the shadows. What he saw didn't look like any known animal. Covered in fur and much taller than a human, the figure alternated between walking on all fours and standing upright. When the watchman grabbed his camera and returned to the porch, the creature walked slowly down the driveway under the floodlights. There, he took a long exposure photo before it vanished back into the marsh. There have been other sightings too, like in 1887, when two lumberjacks in the northern woods of Michigan faced a 7-foot-tall bipedal creature with a canine head and human torso. The account states that they found the animal in a hollow log, and when they poked it with a stick, it let out a human-like scream and stood upright. Then, in 1937 or 1938, a 17-year-old named Robert Fortney reported something chilling. While fishing along the Muskegon River near Paris, Michigan, he was surrounded by a pack of 5 wild dogs. To defend himself, he fired a warning shot from his rifle. 4 of the dogs fled, and the largest number of the pack, who had piercing blue eyes, remained. Even scarier, the animal stood on its hind legs and stared at him. It seemed to be smiling at him. But it even gets more shocking. This wasn't the only time the people of Michigan found themselves face to face with a strange creature that didn't fit ordinary wildlife. Between 1987 and 2007, many witnesses across the state revealed that they saw tall canine-faced figures that walked on 2 legs. It looked very different from wolves or bears. Some said it was watching them from the shadows without aggression, but others felt an overwhelming sense of unease that stayed with him long after the encounter. People who reported these sightings have described the creature in the same way. This was a massive, bipedal, canine-like figure, and it was nothing like what we should find in the Michigan forests. Descriptions of dogmen people who have spotted or faced a dogman have described something that sounds like it belongs in a nightmare or in a myth. But there is something many witnesses have said again and again. This creature was not exactly a dog, and not simply a man. It stood upright like a person, yet had the head of a wolf or large dog, with pointed ears and an intense gaze that seemed to pierce the darkness. Its tall, muscular body was often covered in thick, dark fur, and it moved in a way that was both strange and unsettling. Witness accounts have described the Dogman as a strange creature that's 6 to 8 feet tall when it stood on its hind legs. It was tall enough to tower over most humans. Some said it looked almost human in shape, with long arms and a broad chest, while others revealed its animal features. It had a pronounced snout, sharp teeth, and glowing eyes that shone amber, yellow, or red in low light. But here's what nobody expected. Many witnesses also said the creature could move like both a wolf and a person. In some sightings, it even walked upright, as if it was shuffling between the two legs. In other cases, it was spotted dropping down on all fours and then running away with shocking speed and agility. It's this half-human, half-animal appearance and behavior that makes the cryptid even more shocking. Some storytellers and witnesses have mentioned other variations. Some have described that the Dogmen have hands that are more human-like, with opposable thumbs and fingers. Others have described it with paw-like feet that they use to run fast. Behind these unsettling details, people have talked about the way the creature watched them, as if it understood what was seeing. It is clear that this creature was afraid or cautious about what they could see, and hiding from the rest of us. As one cryptid researcher once said, "It's the mix of human and canine traits that makes the Dogman's description so unique. Like nothing known to science or folklore fits it perfectly." That idea captures why the descriptions of the creature continue to fascinate and frighten those who hear them. But the Dogman might remind you of another strange creature that looks similar, known as the Beast of Bray Road. Beast of Bray Road. When people first heard about the strange wolf-like creature in Wisconsin, they thought that the Dogman had spread to other regions. But here's what nobody expected. The legend that grew up around a quiet country road east of Elkhorn became one of the most talked-about cryptid tales in the United States. Locals began telling stories of what they saw in the woods. They saw a human that looked like a wolf. It was tall, covered in coarse fur, with glowing eyes that seemed to follow you in the dark. Witnesses have described it as a 6 to 7 feet tall creature when standing upright, with a body that was muscular enough to match its eerie stare. The creature became known as the Beast of Bray Road, named after the rural highway where many people claimed to have seen it. Sightings first drew real attention in the late 1980s and early 1990s as drivers started reporting large, wolf-like figures pacing the roadside. They were also seen crouching over roadkill, or sometimes they vanished into the woods. Some said it walked on all fours like a wolf, but others noticed that it stood on 2 legs and took on a posture that was weirdly human. Once locals started reporting the strange sightings of this creature in the woods, the newspapers began collecting reports. But it was one journalist that took all the reports more seriously. At first, she was skeptical about this and worried that this was just folklore and misidentified creatures. But as she interviewed the farmers, drivers, and ordinary residents, she found a shocking consistency in the details. Godfrey later wrote a book about her investigation, recording everything that she saw. She admitted that the witnesses seemed sincere and honest, and even said, "Just when I think I have it pinned down to one idea or another, I'll get a slew of reports that show something else." Creatures in the woods have remained a widespread topic, and once, a videotaping emerged showing a strange creature that raised further questions. The Gable film. When the legend of the Dogman was already growing in Michigan, something unexpected captured widespread attention. This was a mysterious piece of old film that seemed to show the creature on camera. People called it the Gable film. The story went that someone had brought an old 8mm reel at an estate sale and discovered footage that was shot earlier in the woods. At first, the film seemed to be a normal home movie. It showed people chopping wood, riding a snowmobile, or working on vehicles. But towards the end, something strange emerged. In the grainy black and white footage, there was a dark, animal-like figure that moved through the trees. Suddenly, it charged at the person holding the camera. Viewers were shocked, and many believed that this was the biggest proof that the Dogman existed. For a while, the Gable film was one of the strongest pieces of evidence among those who followed cryptid stories. But here's what nobody expected. In 2010, the History Channel show Monster Quest carried out an investigation and claimed that the film was not what it seemed. According to their investigation, the footage was created by a local filmmaker named Mike Agrusa, who used an old camera, vintage props, and a costume to stage the scene as if it were real. It wasn't a dogman or any other creature, but just a person in a ghillie suit moving on all fours to mimic animal-like motion. The film fooled many people at first, but experts and investigators later confirmed that it was a hoax. Still, it remains a strong part of Dogman lore. This might seem like there's no proof, but another image has emerged which points towards the Dogman. Strange creature in the woods. A chilling encounter in a remote section of the Michigan woods has left locals talking about a shocking sighting of the Dogman. Witnesses described the figure as looking unlike any known animal, standing in the woods with its dark body and bright, eerie eyes. It was a terrifying blend of human and canine traits, standing in the shadowed trees. The figure was reported to be towing, muscular, and upright, with a humanoid frame. But it still had very strong animalistic features that make it different from any ordinary wildlife. Observers have described the creature as having long, sinewy limbs with powerful arms ending in clawed hands. Its posture displayed both strength and agility, moving with a deliberate, unsettling grace. The head resembled that of a wolf or large canine, with pointed ears and an elongated snout, yet the stance and body proportions were clearly humanoid. The most striking feature was the eyes, as it reflected light intensely, glowing unnaturally in the dark forest. The creature's skin or fur appeared dark and matted, easily blending with the surrounding woods. The witness who took the picture noticed that the presence of the creature seemed deliberate, as if it was aware of being observed. When you combine the height, muscular build, and animalistic features gave the impression of something primitive and highly evolved. Its long arms hung low, almost reaching its knees, and this added to the grotesque and otherworldly impression. The encounter took place along a narrow clearing surrounded by dense, skeletal trees. Under the moonlight, the creature's outline was obvious, and the glowing eyes made it seem almost supernatural. Folklore versus real-life explanations. For years, stories of dogmen and other creatures have lived in the borderland between folklore and real life, tempting people to believe the impossible. But here's something that scientists always point out. There's no scientific evidence to prove that these creatures exist. There are no bodies, bones, DNA, or clear photographs that have ever been verified by experts. With the lack of physical proof, it's hard for many to believe that the creature really exists. When eyewitnesses describe seeing something strange in the woods, researchers often look for more familiar explanations first. Many sightings of Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road could be misidentified known animals, especially in dim light or from a distance. Animals like gray wolves, large dogs, or even bears standing on their hind legs might easily be mistaken for something unknown, especially if it's dark or when someone is startled or unsure of what they're seeing. But there's something even more interesting. Even without concrete evidence, these stories persist because of what they explore. They tap into deep cultural myths about a creature with both human and canine features. Despite all the witness accounts and blurry photos, it's hard for the world to be convinced that this creature exists. As zoologist and cryptozoologist Carl Schuker explained about unusual creature reports, inconsistencies in descriptions and accounts make it difficult to separate actual reports from folklore. While some say that the Dogman might be a legend, others say it exists, but suspect that it might be a form of hybrid, not just a normal creature. Theories of hybrids. When people hear about a hybrid, they often think of real animals like ligers or mules. These are creatures born from two different species, and so they share the traits of both parents. These kinds of hybrids actually exist in nature or under human care, like when a lion and a tiger are bred together in captivity. But when experts try to explain the Dogman, they suspect that it's a hybrid, even if science says that it's not possible for a wolf or dog and a human to reproduce. After all, in biology, a true hybrid means two different species that are close enough genetically to produce offspring. Humans and other animals are too genetically distinct to mate and produce a hybrid, so the Dogman is definitely not a hybrid. Some cryptid believers suggest that the Dogman might be an unknown hybrid between humans and canines, or a mix of different animal genes that evolved in secret. But some experts have said that this is more fiction and not biology. Instead, some experts don't want to admit that these exist and say that all the reports might be misidentified known animals, folklore influence, and psychological interpretation. Media, interest, and public reaction. The stories of Dogman have spread, but the first time it happened, most people didn't expect much beyond local gossip. But here's what nobody expected. Once the media got involved, these tales attracted many members of the public. In Wisconsin, when reporter Linda Godfrey wrote about the mysterious creature near Bray Road, her article didn't just sit in the local paper, but it was picked up by national tabloids, TV news shows, and documentaries. Her interviews with witnesses and her willingness to take their accounts seriously brought the legend to the light and sparked a lot of conversations about whether there was something strange out there. Since the U.S. officers spotted the Dogman in Michigan, the public reaction was wide and surprising. Some people became true believers, convinced that the stories pointed to a real, unknown animal. Others saw it as entertainment, and some towns also started some forms of cryptid tourism. Whether you believe in Dogman or not, there's no denying that there might be something strange in the woods out there, and we haven't understood it yet. What do you think about the existence of the Dogmen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. So, thanks for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.